I could never do that to us. I took the day off work to get everything around the house ready for the holidays. Our daughter Casey was due home from college tomorrow. Casey is in her senior year of high school. My wife and I look forward to this holiday homecoming every year. We haven't seen Casey since we visited her school in October. Diane, my wife, has been working a lot of overtime the past few months. The company she works for is considering buying one of their competitors. Diane is the project manager in charge of due diligence. Her report to the board of directors will help determine the purchase price. It's a big responsibility, requiring long hours of work and several trips to the target company's headquarters in Phoenix. It's been a tough 4 months for Diane and for me. I miss my wife. We usually close Casey's bedroom door after she leaves in the fall. There's really no reason to use the room. I decided to dust and vacuum the room before making her bed. I lifted the duvet cover so it wouldn't get caught in the vacuum, and that's when I saw this. Leaning forward, I prayed it was just a burst party balloon, but as I got closer, I realized it wasn't. My next thought was disappointment that Casey was making love in our house. She didn't have a steady boyfriend. Was this one of those friends with benefits that young people were now talking about? With my thumb and forefinger, I carefully picked up the prophylactic from the floor, lifted it up, and stared at it. This prophylactic had by no means been used 4 months ago. The contents inside were still in a liquid state. I'm no expert on such things, but the damn thing must have been filled no more than a week or 2 ago. I felt dizzy, and I'm pretty sure I screamed loudly, "What the hell?" I had to sit down on the bed for a moment. That rubber band could only mean one thing. But the thought of my Diane cheating was beyond me. We'd been married for 22 years, and she'd never once given me a reason to worry about her fidelity. Of course, she's 43 years old and guys still flirt with her. The only little wrinkles on her face are those from laughing. She worries that they age her. I told her that they only accentuate her natural beauty. She smiled that smile and kissed me when I said that. Her body is as trim as it was when we got married. Before this damned project, Diane spent 3 days a week at the gym. Last spring, we took 2 weeks and traveled to the Bahamas. Diana was eye-catching in her tiny bikini. She even treated me to an afternoon on the beach topless. That night, we made love like newlyweds. Didn't even make it to dinner. So, why am I sitting on our daughter's bed, holding a damn used contraceptive? I shook the cobwebs out of my head and went to the kitchen to get a plastic bag. I put the rubber band in the bag in an envelope, and then hid it at the bottom of the freezer in the garage. It was the only thing I could think of. Save the evidence just in case. I didn't even want to think about the consequences of that. Divorce? Would I be able to forgive Diana? What if she doesn't want forgiveness? What if she's in love with this guy? I was completely out of my depth. It came out of nowhere. Like a robot on automatic, I went upstairs and finished tidying up Casey's bedroom. After making the bed, I wasn't one step closer to a plan of action. I called my brother and asked if he had time to meet me for lunch. Dave works in the city. From the sound of his voice, he was happy to hear from me and glad to get the hell out of his office for lunch when I said my treat. Dave and I sat in a booth. I leaned forward and lowered my voice. "Dave, this is going nowhere. This is between you and me, okay?" "Sure, Al. What's going on?" I told Dave what I'd discovered. He sat there with his mouth hanging open. "Al, I can't believe it. Not Diane. She loves you, man." That's what I thought. But how else do you explain what I found out? It's just the 2 of us living in the house. The only guests we've had all fall have been the Johnsons, and they're staying in the guest room. I don't think they'd sneak into Casey's room to enjoy a quick love-making session. "What are you gonna do?" "I think I'm going to confront Diane face to face when she gets home tonight. I can't imagine acting like nothing happened." No, don't do that. Confronting her without proof is the last thing you should be doing." "Why not?" Let me tell you why not. 2 months ago, I came home early from work. When I walked in, I could have sworn I heard the door at the back of the house close. At first I thought it was Janet coming out the back door and headed for the kitchen, but then I heard her calling me from upstairs. I went upstairs and saw Janet in her robe. I asked her what was going on. Had I caught her doing this? I was angry. Janet flared up. She yelled at me for a couple minutes. How could I accuse her, the mother of our children, of something like that? She blasted me for thinking such a thing. She cut me off from lovemaking for 3 weeks. 3 weeks of no lovemaking and very little kissing. It was damn cold in the house until she finally let me out of the doghouse. Of course, I was still suspicious. I didn't let her know, but I kept my eyes wide open afterward. I don't know if Janet realizes it. I hope not. But I've been making a checklist for the last 2 months. What kind of checklist is that? Check her closet, check her phone, check the bedroom for signs of love. A couple times I've come home unexpectedly for dinner, paying closer attention to Janet's appearance. Any change in her behavior, any change in our lives. Where the hell did you get that checklist? I found it on the internet. It's amazing what's out there. I just Googled cheating wife, and all kinds of crap came up, including a checklist. During this whole conversation, our waitress was coming and going, taking our order, bringing our lunch, bringing the check. Throughout all of this, I caught her listening. Finally, when she brought our check, she leaned over and spoke. I caught my boyfriend checking his cell phone. He and his girlfriend kept a constant stream of messages. He tried to deny it, but it was too much. I dumped him. I walked out of the restaurant not knowing what I was going to do. I sat in my study and listened to Rachmaninoff. Classics always calm me down and help me think. Was there any other evidence of infidelity? Anything other than one used contraceptive? Of course, Diana was working late, came home late at night, and even stopped by the office on Saturdays. There were trips out of town. What did Dave say? Was there a change in behavior? It hit me. Last month, Diane had spent an hour in the bathroom soaking in the tub and primping herself. When she was done, she called me into the bedroom. I walked in and found her in silk pajamas I'd never seen before. Diane melted into my arms and began undressing me. Get in the shower and shave. Hurry up. I was hard as a rock when I entered the bathroom. A quick shower, a thorough shave, and I was back in the bedroom. 4 candles were burning there, and Diane was lying on the bed, pulling back the covers. I toweled off my waist and joined her on the bed. In the 23 years since the day I'd asked Diana to marry me, this was the only body I'd ever touched, and I'd never tire of holding it in my hands, playing with it. Next, we made love all night long. We looked at each other and started laughing. Almost at the same moment, we said the same thing. That was wonderful. Then we laughed some more. As soon as we came to our senses, we went to the bathroom and showered together, kissing the whole time. That was a month ago, and until today's conversation with my brother at lunch, it had never occurred to me that Diane had shaved herself for anyone but me. It's time to do some more investigating. Diane will be home in a couple hours, so there's no better time to start than the present. I search her closet first, digging through boxes and bags. Nothing out of the ordinary, except for a new bikini in a bag from Nordstrom that still had tags on it. Maybe that was what she wore for him in Phoenix? I'd be sure to look for it the next time she was out of town. Then I looked in her drawers. Again, nothing I hadn't seen before. No new frilly underwear or nightgowns. No short dresses or tops I hadn't seen her wearing. No hidden stockpile of protection. By the time I finished my search, it was time to make dinner. It was salad night, so it wasn't hard. I opened a bottle of Burgundy Pinot Noir and sat in the kitchen, waiting for Diane to return. When she walked through the door 15 minutes later, I couldn't believe it was the woman I suspected of cheating on me. She practically dropped her briefcase on the floor, put her arms around me, and kissed me hard. Then I could taste the wine on her lips. I'm so happy to be home, 2 weeks with my family. I turned in my report this afternoon. It's finished. I hope you don't mind. I took my team across the street to the Met and bought drinks. I had to thank them all for their hard work. I had 1 glass of wine and went straight home. She kissed me again. Oh, honey, I've missed you so much these past few months. I put my arms around her waist and pulled her to me. I missed you too. Does this mean you won't have a job for the next 2 weeks? No job? I hope so, but I wouldn't be surprised if a question or two doesn't arise and I have to take a call. With any luck, I won't have to leave. I promise to keep it to a minimum. I'm looking forward to 2 weeks with you and Casey. Did she call? I talked to her this morning. Her flight lands at 11 and we're picking her up. Does she have plans tomorrow night? We talked about it. She's having dinner with us. She's looking forward to a home-cooked meal. Then after dinner, she's going out with friends. She said we'll spend all day Sunday catching up. Diane and I had a wonderful evening. We drank wine and almost a second bottle, ate a salad, drank 2 cognacs, and talked the whole time. I almost forgot my suspicions as we chatted. At 10:30, Diana was tipsy and couldn't stop yawning. Let's go to bed. I need to get some sleep. Diane fell asleep as soon as her head touched the pillow. I stayed up to read. An hour later, she fell into a deep sleep, and I did something I had never done before. I reached out and grabbed her phone off the bedside table, pressed the button to open it. It was locked. After that, it took at least 2 hours to fall asleep. The waitress's words haunted my thoughts. I caught my boyfriend checking his phone. Diane got up before I did, and I could smell coffee brewing. I walked into the kitchen. Good morning, sleepyhead. How long have you been up? I'm sorry I ignored you. I didn't realize how exhausted I was. I'll make it up to you when Casey goes out with her friends this evening. I promise. There she goes, being so sweet again. Are those the words of a cheating spouse? But still, why is her phone locked? I decided to try a trick that occurred to me at 1 in the morning. I grabbed Diane's cell phone from the kitchen table. Diane, I need to call Sandra's husband about that fishing rod he has for sale. Can I get her number from your contact list? Sandra was one of Diane's co-workers, and her husband was an avid fly fisherman. I didn't wait for Diane's response. I just pressed the button that said the phone was locked. Diana, the phone is locked. When did you start locking it? The password is the same as our garage door, 4002. I started locking it since I came back to my desk and found Kevin looking at the pictures on my phone. I left my phone on my desk while I was in a meeting, came back, and the little spy is holding my phone and digging through my gallery. He was so close. Diana spread her 2 fingers a couple of centimeters apart. From getting fired. He's got a warning in his file. 1 more rule violation and he's out. I guess I didn't tell you because it was a personnel matter, and you and I have always treated it as confidential information. I pressed 4002 while Diane was talking, and the phone opened. I would have fired him. You're being too lenient. I probably would, but his wife just had a baby. I hope he takes a second chance. Good luck with that. I wrote down Sandra's cell phone number and had to call later just to continue my story about the fishing rod. Of course, I could always use another fishing rod. I didn't hang up. So what's so interesting about the photos in your gallery that it almost got a guy fired? Diane laughed. Wouldn't I like to know? There are no nude photos of my lover, no selfies of me, just a couple of pictures from the flower show Janet and I went to last month and some cute shots of Casey she sent last semester. Your wife is a nerd. No nude pictures of your mistress? I couldn't believe she said that. I kept going through her gallery and she was telling the truth, just pictures of flowers and Casey. Who the hell is your mistress? I hope I asked that without sounding as annoyed as I felt. Diana laughed again. Why do you ask, silly? Who else would it be? That woman is driving me crazy. We continued to chat about dinner menus and whatever else we wanted to talk about, while I continued to sneak a peek at her text messages. Diane wasn't paying attention and I didn't find anything. We picked Casey up at the airport and spent the next 2 weeks on a wonderful family vacation. We traveled to the mountains and went skiing. We spent 3 days snowshoeing through the Maythow Valley. Nights were spent in a rented cabin just a few feet from the Chewuch River. Diane answered a few work calls and spent only 1 day in the office. The mystery of the hidden bikini was solved when I opened my Christmas present from Diane. 2 tickets to the Bahamas for early March. And I have something special to wear while we're there. She embarrassed the hell out of Casey as she picked up 2 small pieces of fabric. Mom, please. I probably would have forgotten the whole contraceptive mystery if it weren't for my brother. I mean, all Diane did was shower me with love and affection during those 2 weeks. Diane and I threw a party to which many of our neighbors were invited. My brother and his wife Janet were there. They lived on the next block with their 2 teenage twin boys. I like most of our neighbors. We have one of the few neighborhoods in Seattle where people actually take the time to get to know their neighbors and talk to them. There were about 12 couples at our house that night. One of the few neighbors I couldn't stand was there, Ed Parker. The only reason he was invited was because of his wife Sylvia. She's such a nice lady that Diane insisted we invite them, even though Parker was a braggart and a flirt. Not a fun flirt, but one of those jerks you want to keep away from your wife because you know he'd make love to her if your wife had the bad taste to let him. During the party, Ed Parker had too much to drink and started loosening his tongue. He and Hank Jones went out to smoke on the patio. No tobacco in our house. Diane has a hard time tolerating it outside, and Ed was bragging to Hank about some of the wonderful women in the neighborhood. Dave was urinating in the powder room. The window was ajar, and Dave could hear Ed's words. It didn't get far, because Hank was tired of Ed's bragging. He put out his cigarette and went back into the house. The thing was, ever since Ed had been laid off from his job at the bank, he'd been house husband and Sylvia brought home a paycheck. So, if there's any guy who has the time, opportunity, and inclination to sleep with any of the neighborhood wives, it's Ed Parker. The next day, Dave came over and relayed what he had overheard. I froze in bewilderment as Dave asked the question, Al, do you think Ed Parker was the one with the defense? No way. Hell, I can't see Diane with that scumbag. She knows I hate that asshole. She thinks he's an asshole, and besides, I don't think Diane is cheating on me. But, Discovery. How do you explain that? I don't know. I just don't think it's Diane. Well, if it were me, I'd have to know for sure. I couldn't live with a cheating wife. Watch your language, Dave. You're talking about my wife. Sorry, still. Dave didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to finish for me to see his point. I thought about the used contraceptive lying in the freezer. Could I take DNA from Diane and Ed to compare it to the DNA on the surprise? Seemed like a stretch. And would it be real evidence I could use in court if it came to a fight? I decided to keep it simple. I was out of town for 4 days next week. If anything went wrong, the 2 of them would take advantage of the situation. The clerk at the spy store was more than accommodating, probably because I walked out of the store with $1,100 worth of gear. I could have set up a small motion-sensitive camera in Casey's room. It would stay hidden amongst all the knickknacks on her shelf. Same for the guest room, which now had a new radio clock with a camera inside. Our bedroom was more complicated. Anything new in the room would be noticed. I opted for a voice-activated voice recorder hidden under my nightstand. It would have to suffice. It had been a rough week, possibly the longest of my life. I talked to Diana every night, and if anything was going on, she was the greatest actress in the world. Nothing but, "I love you" or "I miss you" came out of her mouth. On Friday, she took time off work and met me at the airport. We bought Thai takeout at our favorite eatery and ate it in bed after welcoming love at home. The entire weekend was spent making up for my absence. Plus, unfortunately, Diane had to fly to Phoenix on Tuesday to officially sign the purchase agreement. I'm sorry it couldn't be done while you were out of town. The lawyers didn't finalize the paperwork until Wednesday. By the time the ink was dry, it took the board a few days to make travel arrangements. I'm leaving Tuesday morning, and I'll be back Wednesday night. There's nothing to be done about it. I just hope this is the last major project for you this year. You really burned both ends of the candle. You did a great job, love. I loved this woman so much that I spent all that weekend hoping and praying that nothing would come of all the entries. Tuesday morning, Diane left for her 6 a.m. flight. I poured myself a cup of coffee and settled into my office to review the cameras and voice recordings. I started with the most likely room, Casey's room. The image appeared immediately. The date and time was Wednesday at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Two adulterers entered the room and immediately began undressing each other. I was horrified as I watched the destruction of at least one marriage and possibly two. I had no idea how Sylvia would react to seeing a copy of this video I planned to share with her. I quickly scrolled through the scene. I didn't need to see the details, but I did need to see how it wrapped up, and at certain points I was curious to hear what the two were talking about. Unpleasant comments directed at their innocent spouses. So I fast-forwarded, stopped, watched, and listened, then fast-forwarded again. How many men have you slept with while you've been married? Not that it's any of your business, but you're the third one. I like men, and I like making love. I like the way my husband takes care of me and the twins. We have a good life, but he only meets some of my needs. That's why we need to be careful. He almost caught us in October. That's the last time we were at my house, and since your wife comes and goes all day, that's the safest option. Until my niece comes home. That would be hard to explain. After she finished her monologue, Ed pushed her back onto the bed and started his business again. I turned it off. I called Dave at work and asked him to come over after dinner. He came over and it didn't go well. He cried for a while and we had too much to drink. I called Janet and told her that Dave would sleep at our house. I didn't tell her what provoked the overindulgence of his desires, and she didn't ask. I won't spell it all out. On Wednesday, Dave and I took the day off. After he recovered from his hangover, we went to my attorney's office and talked to their family specialist. Dave drew up the divorce papers. Something didn't go the way she wanted it to. The twins turned 14 and decided to live with their father. I was prepared for them to hear, not see, their mother's confession of betrayal to their father. Fortunately, that was not necessary. The boys chose to stay with their father. Because Dave wanted to take the boys, the judge gave him possession of the house. He was to pay Janet maintenance for 2 years, but for those 2 years it was only $1,200 a month. Sylvia divorced Ed using the video I gave her. She stayed in the house and he left. Thank God. Because Dave was looking for him. I heard that Janet tried to get Ed to move in with her, but Ed said he wouldn't have anything to do with a cheating woman. Diane and I did our best to help Dave through all the drama of that first year. Diane was especially helpful with her 2 godsons. They both depended on her as a conversationalist. Even Casey helped with her cousins after graduation in May. She spent the summer, her last stay with us before moving to Portland in September, giving advice from a woman's perspective. I'm getting a little ahead of myself. I should tell you what I found on the other video and on the recorder. Nothing. Well, nothing at all, and in fact, the recorder in our bedroom did record some of Diane's phone calls. At least half of the calls during my business trip. Diane talked to her mom, Casey, and her boss. I won't go into details. Let's just say this woman loves me and I have nothing to worry about. She seems to think I'm a pretty great guy. I never told Diane about my suspicions. It's best to leave some things alone. Of course, now she knew about the camera in Casey's room. I made up an explanation. Told her I suspected Janet had used the key she had to our house to meet Ed. I just needed to prove it. Diane seemed to buy that explanation until... It had been almost a month since all this crap had come out. Dinner was over, and Diane and I were having an after-dinner drink and relaxing while reading in the living room. Suddenly, Diane tore her gaze away from her book. "You thought I was cheating on you!" Oh, crap. Epilogue. I sat there looking like the deer from the proverbial deer caught in the headlights. Diana sat in her chair staring at me, waiting for my response. "Baby, come here on the couch. Let me tell you a story." I explained the circumstances, the filled contraceptive, my conversation with Dave and the nosy waitress, the blocked phone, the overtime, and the traveling. It was all on the same scale. Then I told her that all this time I never truly believed she could have cheated on our marriage. Despite all these strange facts and circumstances, she was not that kind of woman. Diana looked at me. I could see she was struggling to understand. That's the kind of woman she is. She put her arms around my neck and said the magic words. Alec, honey, I could never do this to us. I love you. And that was the end of it. The end!